So, for the video today, I wanted to talk to you about the hidden truth about dreaming, how we journey through the astral and the spiritual realms. So, I guess I could say this: good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. I want to invite you to open your heart and mind tonight, not just to science, but not even just to psychology, but to the divine mystery that surrounds our nightly descent into the unknown. I'm here to speak not just as a student of spirit, but as someone who has walked through the shadowy corridors of dreams. And many times I've battled for my very soul there. When we sleep, our soul awakens. Every night, as our bodies rest, something sacred happens. Our soul begins its journey beyond the physical plane. And collective, many of us call this dreaming, and some might even call it astral projection or astral traveling, but it's the point of truth. It's an opening of a portal, and we can return to a very large part of our essence when we pass through this portal. And some of us do it quite consciously, some of it do it without awareness. And awareness in the dream is important because it brings revelation and responsibility once we realize it. In my own experiences, I've noticed that when I dream, my sense of identity can become distorted. Sometimes I may not remember who I am. Other times, pieces of my waking life emerge. Places, people, moments that remind me of who I've been and where I've gone. But it gets strange because I'll encounter people who may have died long ago, living again as if they'd never left. And that's when the realization strikes that I'm not just dreaming, but I'm somewhere else, somewhere that is beyond space and time. And so this is where we come to understand dreaming as a spiritual experience. In the dream world, when you dream and your identity becomes unclear or fragmented, this is not an error. It's a form of liberation. Remember, in the waking world, your identity is tethered to memory, to ego, to responsibilities, to physical constraints, to a very linear movement of time, right? But in the dream world, your ego dissolves, your higher self, your soul consciousness begins to operate without the limits you might impose while you're awake. And this loosening of the egoic identity allows for a fluid, multidimensional perception of self and the world around you. In many esoteric traditions, such as Hermeticism and even certain forms of Gnostic mysticism, the dream state is a gateway. It's a liminal place where the soul steps beyond what many may call the false self, and you remember more of your divine nature. So let's go into the nature of the dream realm. You see, in esoteric and spiritual circles and their respective traditions, Kabbalah, Gnosticism, Merkaba, Hermetica, and the indigenous teachings alike, dreams are not illusions, they are realms in themselves. They exist in the Yesod, in the astral plane, in the Kabbalah, in the foundation between the physical and the divine. They are gateways to the Akashic records, where all memories of time, past, present, and that which is even possible, are stored. Points of different timelines, the intersection, the great dreaming in indigenous spirituality is where the world creates a awakened version, and we don't follow by clocks. It flows like water. You can move forward, you can move backward, you can move sideways through timelines, you can meet ancestors, you can talk with unborn children, you can revisit old wounds still echoing in your soul. This is why the dead appear, why events feel familiar but different, because in the dream state you have slipped out of the grip of space and time. Sometimes you can experience whole lifetimes and then realize I've only been asleep for an hour. Events can happen in nonlinear fashions. People who are deceased appear in your dreams and the scenes don't match what you recall from your memory. This is a shift in dimensional alignment, and here's why. Time is truly nonlinear in spiritual and astral planes. The future, present, and past can all coexist in a fluid state. And so these dreams are not necessarily hallucinations, they are glimpses into parallel timelines, alternate realities, soul memories, and collective astral records. The dead are never truly gone. In the dream world, you are simply stepping into the layer where they still exist energetically. And this is aligned with the concept of the Akashic Records and the Astral Light. This is a metaphysical library of all events, of all souls, and all potentials that transcend space and time. So, what are the times when I come to realize that I'm dreaming? Well, there is a special moment that does happen to be in some of the dreams. I realize I'm dreaming because as I recall the real world and see what's going on in the spiritual world, I realize that things don't add up, things don't make sense. The real world is bound by physical laws, but the dream world is not. I can fly, I can rewrite history, I can return what was lost, I can become whatever the waking world tells me that I cannot. I can break limits. And in that moment, when you realize you're the dreamer within the dream, that becomes a sacred moment. It's the beginning of a spiritual awakening within the astral. The same how we awaken from dreams when we open our eyes in the morning, when we awaken inside the dream itself, when our soul begins to remember the true extent of its power. And this is a form of lucid realization. This is when we become the dreamer within the dream. And we start to realize mid-dream that we are dreaming, and this is a powerful threshold. In this state, I'm practicing lucid dreaming, and you can too. And more importantly, when you do this, you wake up within the illusion. You become the co-creator you were always meant to be. You're not just an observer. At this level, the dream becomes a simulated dimension of spiritual practice, much like the Tibetan concept of the bardo, or the Toltec concept of dreaming consciousness. To the trained mind and awakened soul, this realization is a step towards astral projection or astral travel, where you can navigate the inner planes with an increased sense of awareness. And some people are even trained very thoroughly on how to navigate this. This has overlapping characteristics with astral projection, but also with lucid dreaming, with soul traveling, with visionary states. Those who are trained in this learn how to navigate the pathways, and they can even reach out to other souls and make contact with them. So at this point, your soul has left your body consciously, and it's traveling this dimension that's layered above the physical world, where forms, spirits, and divine archetypes can exist. Now, you're not always conscious at the beginning, but you will become so within the dream at some point. You're starting to use your awareness to bend the laws of time and form. You become this limitless being that's interacting with other beings that are not bound by physical world constraints. This places your experience in the realm of unconscious astral travel with emerging conscious control. So how does this work from a spiritual standpoint? Well, from an esoteric perspective, you have these spiritual models that can help define your experience. One is the multi-layered soul reality. Your waking life is called Malkuth, which is the physical world. Your dreaming state is called the Yasad, which is the foundation, the subconscious, the astral plane. Your higher planes might be called Tifereth and Dath and beyond, the divine realms. Each time you dream, you're shifting consciousness into Yasad, which mirrors reality but with its own mutable symbolic rules. And it becomes the bridge between the material and the spiritual. Now, is this in fact astral travel? Because we've used the term astral several times through this video. So you might ask, what is this? Is this just my subconscious? Is this something more? Is this something deeper? Yes, it is astral travel, but perhaps not as formal or as conscious as when someone deliberately projects out of their body into a meditative state. I will say, though, sometimes when I am between that form of being awake and falling into sleep, there is a meditative state that happens in between where I gain awareness of things that I should not be aware of. For example, I was able to once see a person that was projecting towards me, and I was able to recognize them for who they were. And it was rather fascinating how this happened, because there are different levels of this, and in those different levels, if you're trained, you can know how to move in a certain way that you really can pick up what needs to be done. I suppose there are other ways to reach these states. You have your physical body, your etheric body, your astral body, your mental body, your causal or spiritual body. Some people might use maybe intoxicants or narcotics, peyote even, to sort of reach these states so they can go ahead and move and travel between these worlds. You may feel empowered to shape the world as you see fit. You may become aware that you can change your form. You may become aware you can break physical laws. You can fly. You can shift your time. I used to fly very often as a kid, and a lot of those times it seemed like whenever I did encounter people, they didn't like this necessarily because maybe for them, they weren't using their minds in that way. They weren't transcending their limits. They were merely echoing what they saw in the real world. But I realized that I could break beyond that, and perhaps that in of itself can cause a sense of envy. Um, Additionally, you may have these scenes that seem familiar but are altered, and so they become reflections of other versions of your life or karmic resonances playing out as teachings, or maybe even you refashioning events because you have something pressing that you want to resolve in your mind. Now, I'm going to be honest with you, as I mentioned earlier, there were some people that might be envious. There were some people that might come towards me because they have some agenda. And so I've had dreams where I've been attacked emotionally, spiritually, and energetically. And these are not just mere nightmares, these are definitely spiritual psychic attacks and spiritual battles. And in these dreams, I knew who I was. I knew I carried light inside of me. And I knew that I was chosen by God to do something sacred. And that's exactly why I was attacked, because there are entities in the dream realm who are not of light, who are not of God. Some were even once human. Some have fallen off of their spiritual path. Some have malformed their souls. And these become parasites of energy, haters of light, despisers of God's children. These beings come with one goal: to extinguish your light. Why? Because your light disturbs their darkness. Because they sense the divine hand over you. Because you did something that they could not. And so when they realize you awaken fully, they lose their grip over others, and they don't like that. They would rather use their darkness to control others, to steal from others, to be like vampires over others, taking from them and using it for their own. And so what I've learned over time is that I don't have to accept these attacks. When I feel something is off, when I feel something is stalking me in a dream, I remind myself I am the child of the Most High. No force of darkness may enter without my permission. Just like how a vampire may not enter a house unless you invite it in. Sometimes we call on divine names. Sometimes we call on our ancestors. Sometimes I stand my ground and I fight hand to hand, weapon to weapon, blow to blow. It's not that I want to be violent, but it's in its own way. You have to fight back because it's the light within you they want to snuff out. Matter of fact, I want to say at least 3 days ago, I became encompassed by a shadow being that attempted to constrict me, much like a snake that wants to squeeze someone to death. And I had to draw within to make that light become all the more powerful, to break free, because it wanted to contain me and it could not. And this is what you have to do sometimes. You have to recognize that your only limits are what you impose on yourself. When you call upon your light, when you call upon all the goodness that God put inside of you because you are chosen, because you are destined, you realize that you have an endless reserve of power. If I want to become stronger, I will. If I want to change outcomes, I will. If I want to heal something broken in the waking world, I can plant the seed of it in the dream world and watch it blossom in real life. As above, so below, as within, so without. So it is from this standpoint we understand that there's a lot of guidance that we can follow, following a spiritual framework to use our experiences to the better. We can use the dream world as a template. When you become aware in your dreams, you need to pause. You need to affirm that I am the dreamer and I am the creator here, and I can call forth truth and higher guidance. I can ask questions. I can invoke light. I can walk with purpose. I can call on my power. And so this is why many want to use dream journaling, because maybe as the dreams progress, you want to chronicle your journeys. You want to chronicle the things you've seen. You want to write these down as soon as you wake up, because you may see recurring guides and symbols. You may see messages from ancestors and your higher self. You may see patterns that reflect your soul growth and karmic lessons you need to learn and move on from. You want to honor your skills. Whatever you're doing is training your soul for higher consciousness. In mystical traditions, this is part of the training. Mystics did this in Kabbalah. Initiates did this in Egyptian temples. Dreamwalkers did this in indigenous shamanic traditions. And so at the end of it all comes our revelation, which is once again talking about not being bounded, not being limited, not being trapped. Perhaps I said it best when I said at the end of it all limits can be broken. And that is the ultimate lesson of dreaming. The physical world has gravity, time, rules, expectations, and chains, but the dream world is a preview of yourself as unbound. In your dreams, you are reminded that you are not just your body. You are not just your trauma. You are not just your failures. You are a soul. You are eternal. You will outlive even when your mortal form turns to dust. You are expansive. You are limitless. And once you realize that within your dreams you have that power, you can carry that into your waking life. You can use that power to change your waking reality. Because all limits can be broken, this is the one truth of the soul. In the dream and astral planes, you remember that the waking world makes you forget who you truly are. You are infinite consciousness. You are from source. You are having a human experience, but you are a spiritual being that is immortal. And you can rewrite your reality by planting seeds of it subtly in the dream world that you can carry with you into the waking world. When you break the laws of the dreams, you prepare your soul to break the chains of limitation in the physical world you live in every day. What you're doing is not just dreaming, it is manifestation, it is spiritual mastery in motion. So tonight, when you close your eyes, I invite you to not just sleep, but to journey, to remember, to explore, to think about all of the things you want in your life and what you want to do while you're in this physical world. And walk always as one who knows the truth, whether you're dreaming or awake. Because in the world of dreams, you're already free. And in the moment you believe that fully, you'll start to become free everywhere else too. And that includes this physical reality. So never, never forget the power you truly gain. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content.